Hello and welcome to this edition of Velocity Kinetics. Today, talking about more of the scourge of the SUV. What's happened? So what is the problem then? Well, problem is Jaguar. Jaguar have recently announced that they are no longer making saloons, estates, or sports cars. So pretty much annihilating the core of their business, the core of their models, you name it. Some of the best sports cars ever produced, some of the most beautiful looking sports cars ever produced are Jaguars. Some of the most comfortable saloons on the planet are Jaguars. One of the fastest cars on the planet is a Jaguar, the XJ220. So what does this mean going forwards? Well, it basically means that Jaguar is going to just be making SUVs, and it's not like, as I understand it, it's not like Volvo, where Volvo just pulled it out of the UK market. This is globally Jaguar pulling out of making saloons and sports cars. Now, where I saw this news originally, it was on Car Throttle. Post came on my Facebook feed. And reading the comments, someone did point out in there, quite fairly, that it's only this until Jaguar announced their new sports car or the next supercar or new saloon, which perhaps may well be that Jaguar just hasn't got the time or the resource to go through a proper development cycle. So they're stopping selling all those whilst they redevelop things like the XF, which, let's be honest, as much as I would love to have an XF, particularly the estate, the XF has been around for quite a long time and has only really, as I've understood it, only undergone slight visual changes. I'd love to have an XFR or the XFRR if that was a thing. I feel like that was, but maybe I'm remembering it all wrong. And the XE, rather nice car, rather good saloon. I wouldn't mind having one on my driveway. F-Type, not quite as nice looking as an XK in my opinion. I'm just going off looks there. I have no doubt it can drive rings round an XK, even an XKR, but still. And the big fat Jag, the big XJ, that's gone. One of the most comfortable saloons on the planet, one of the biggest, one of the nicest. Well, maybe one of the biggest is a bit unfair to say because I'm sure there are bigger saloons, but maybe quite iconic in terms of it. I had the seats out of an XJ6. I had the seats out of an XJ6 because I was trying to create a Top Gear living room at one point. And they were seriously comfortable. That was a 1986 car that I had them from. I bought them off eBay. So this basically leaves Jag with the I-Pace, the E-Pace, and I think it's called the F-Pace. Something else I hadn't thought of until I saw this person's post on the Car Throttle comments section is the whole company is called Jaguar Land Rover. Land Rover make very luxurious, very comfortable SUVs, 4x4s, whatever you want to call them. So Jaguar are basically competing against the most established maker of those on the market, even if they are raiding the same parts bin and just slapping different badges on. Land Rover did it first, Land Rover got the pedigree, Land Rover have got the record. Jaguar hasn't really. I know when I looked at an E-Pace a while ago, as my wife would at the time, she said she would have liked an Evoque, and when we looked at one, she didn't really like it, but we both really loved the Discovery Sport. And we said, well, how about, if the E-Pace was cheaper, would that be something we'd be interested in? No, didn't like it either. Didn't like the E-Pace very much. F-Pace just seems a waste of space to me. What does it, apart from higher ground clearance and potentially all-wheel drive, what does the F-Pace offer that the XF or the XJ or the XE couldn't do? It seats 5 quite comfortably, goes pretty quick, handles, I imagine it handles quite well, but these saloons handle very well, and they've got big luggage capacity. In fact, I would imagine the XF estate has got far more luggage capacity than the F-Type. Not F-Type, obviously it's got more than the F-Type, the F-Pace. And this brings me on to the ongoing scourge of the SUV. Now, some people might accuse me of being too anti it, as in, being a broken record on the subject. Sort of, yeah, I get it, you don't like SUVs. But it's not like, say, for instance, a restaurant chain. You might not like a certain restaurant chain, so you just go to a different one. The problem is, using the restaurant chain analogy, is there's a convergence especially in some manufacturers, of going towards that same restaurant chain, shall we say. So Volvo, SUVs only. Jaguar, SUVs only. Audi, a huge range of SUVs. BMW, just as impressive range of SUVs. Mercedes, big in their G-Class. Half Suzuki's range is SUVs. Toyota have a couple in their range. Vauxhall have a couple. Peugeot have a few. Renault gotten in on the act as well. To look at the French, the Italians been in on it too. Fiat was it the 600L or 500L, and Alpha have got two, and it's just getting more and more and more. Even a solid brand like Ford have got quite a few in the range. At one point, they had the Cougar, they had the Edge, and the EcoSport. EcoSport. I wasn't say EcoBoost. EcoSport. Now they've also got the Puma in there too, and if you count people trying to import the Expedition, which apparently you can do, there's potentially the Expedition, and there's obviously the Ranger, but that's a pickup, and that's sort of more of a vehicle that has an actual purpose. But Ford don't have a decent replacement for an SUV, because the Mondeo has been stopped, so there's no good saloon or alternative estate. You could get a Focus estate, but even the Focus is only hatchback or estate. I appreciate maybe with this current shape Focus, it might not look the nicest in a saloon, but no one, at least that I'm aware of in the European market, no one tried. Simple as that. Manufacturers like BMW and Audi, who've got huge ranges of SUVs, do offer very good alternatives in their saloons in the States. The A4, for example, within Audi, the A4 Saloon and Avant, both very big vehicles, very comfortable vehicles, and probably far better than their Q equivalents. BMW, let's take the 3 Series, for example, the Saloon and I think they call it a Touring. Fantastic vehicles, and probably better than its X equivalent, which probably would be, it's supposed to really be an X3. It's up against the X3's turned into something awful. You've even got Rolls-Royce getting in on the SUV market, which is a bit maddening, to say the least. Rolls-Royce, purveyor of some of the best SUVs on the planet, and Bentley, some of the most iconic cars ever produced by those two brands, and they're now doing SUVs as well. Which, if you want a luxury SUV, you buy a Range Rover. That's just it. But the alternatives to step away from the SUV are getting fewer and further between. If we look at Suzuki, for example, if they break that deal with Toyota, then they lose the Swace, they lose the A-Cross, which is an SUV. So then what are you left with? Left with an S-Cross and the Vitara. There's no saloon, estate, no other platform showing anywhere else. Gone. Toyota dropped the Corolla, which I really don't think they will, but we didn't think Ford would ever drop the Mondeo. If Toyota dropped the Corolla, there isn't anything in that gap. Jag dropping their saloons, nothing in the gap. Volvo dropping them, nothing in the gap. I'm a bit fed up. And the other thing is, with for me at least, an SUV should be able to do things like off-roading. It should be able to, granted, most of them, nearly all of them, come with road tyres, so you would probably need to put off-road tyres on, or some sort of hybrid tyre on, to get the best out of them. But most of them couldn't go off-road if they tried. Even if you put the proper tyres on them. Heck, even Subaru have lost half their have lost well, at the moment I believe they haven't got an Impreza, and they lost the Levorg and whatever else was filling in that gap for a long time. Oh, it bothers me to the nth degree. I don't want an SUV. I might have to for how bad the roads are getting around where I live, but then I'm becoming part of the problem. In fact, Patrick Swayze is kind of part of the problem anyway, because of its battery pack. It's that much heavier than a conventional petrol or diesel alternative. Even if it's only say 50 to 100 kilos heavier, it's still 50 to 100 kilos more than the equivalent going across everything. But be part of the problem by having cars that are too wide for some of the lanes that we've got to go down, no proper passing places, then some of the places that are below, well, below, I won't say below the water table because that's not the right way to put it, below, well, let's say where water would pool naturally, like where I accidentally got my Suzuki Swayze dunked. Even if I had, say, an S-Cross, even the Land Rover Discovery Sport, out of all the cars I want, not looking into things that could have done it, just what I want. It's the only one that could have gotten through that without too much bother. Everything else couldn't have, even if I went for an S-Cross, which at one point I did want an S-Cross, but that was when it was so tantalisingly close to being able to get one instead of a Baleno. That couldn't have made it through. If I had, say, for instance, got an A-Cross or the Toyota RAV4, that probably would have just about made it through, but it wouldn't have done a very good job of it. Half these vehicles that are on sale and branded SUVs can't do half the SUV stuff. And they're often sold on the grounds of being safe, which I've got a bone of contention with that statement, because you're only as safe as you drive. A Volvo is a very safe car, but you drive it like a moron, I can guarantee you would be as dead or as much of an organ donor as any other manufacturer. Driving a Volvo does not give you exclusivity on being immortal, because if it was something that made you immortal, then everyone would drive a Volvo everywhere. I guess I'm just fed up with it. The market research might say, but people are buying more SUVs. Why are people buying more SUVs? Because they're taking up more of the marketplace. So of course you're going to sell more SUVs because they take up more of the marketplace. Or it'd be a bit like Alfa saying, well, the Giulia Saloon is selling really well, so we're going to keep making the Giulia Saloon. Which at one point that was the only other car they made. So of course it's going to look like it's selling well, because if that's the only other car you've got in your lineup, it's going to of course sell well in your sales figures, because there's nothing else. And even if you, regardless of what offers you put on or what incentives you put on, and also never mind, regardless of what government is in charge, and this would be regardless of where you live in the world, apart from possibly America, because not wishing to slander or slag off our colleagues, friends, family across the pond, because they just doing the best of the situation that they are dealt. But certainly I'll say, at least for the UK, regardless of what government's in power, and several other places within Europe as well, I would say, there's a semi-ongoing war with the car. And the SUV gets a lot of target for it. Even though the SUV, admittedly, they're not fitting them these big, like V8s, V6s, big turbo this and supercharged that. They are often fitted with the same motor you can get in any other vehicle within a range. Partly for modular car production, so they don't have to remember they've got this engine for that and that for this and this for that. They can just lob it into whatever car you've got. It's cheaper to make a brace to go across an engine bay to hold an engine in place than it is to have a whole special engine for a certain car. Bring us whole circle. If Jaguar, purveyor of all things saloon, sports cars of world-class nature, are pulling out of the saloon estate market, how far behind is everyone else from doing that? How soon is it before we hear BMW deciding to drop? Well, they probably won't, because the 3 and the 5 Series still sell very well. But I thought Volvo saloons in the States were selling well over here. I see more X2s and X3s out of the BMW range than I do see a 3 Series, even the 3 Series Touring. Will Peugeot drop them? The sun's really in my eyes at the moment. Lovely. Thank you. Will Peugeot suddenly drop the 508? Because I haven't seen that many around, and that's a car I would really like to have on my driveway, at least based on looks and the comfortability I felt in it. How long before they drop them? Or the 308 estate, which there are quite a few police 308 estates around various Nibbons, and they look rather good. But how long before everyone else decides to go that same way? You wouldn't force... It'd be a bit like if computer manufacturers suddenly stopped making traditional desktop tower PCs like I prefer to use myself. There's a lot of people who like to use them for gaming, what have you. Imagine if someone said no. Imagine if Dell out of nowhere, supplier of all things, probably office based. I'd be willing to bet if you go into most offices, their thin clients or their towers or their racks, most of their stuff will be Dell in some capacity. A lot of offices, at least, not most. So that'd be a bit unfair, but it's split between HP and Dell. Could you imagine if either one of those turned around and said, "Yeah, we're only focusing on laptops now"? It's absolutely mad. So Jaguar, I really hope you're just pulling our legs and you've got a new saloon and estate and sports car in production and you've just used a really piss poor choice of words. Stupid on your part. It is idiocy to the nth degree. Oh well, and with that, back to work. Give the channel a subscribe. Please like and follow the Facebook page, and if you're feeling generous, donate to paypal.me/velocitykinetics. See you next time.